I think for two major reasons it's important to include transportation in transition planning. One, it heightens the importance of transportation in terms of helping educators, students, transition specialists, families think about exactly how important transportation is to post-school goals. It embeds the notion of students having transportation supports in post-school planning. So not having transition specialists address it in the context of transition planning doesn't make it seem as important if transition specialists don't address it. Secondly, by not integrating it in transition planning, the resources around transportation may not be addressed. It may be an afterthought. It may be addressed after transition planning. So when transition specialists do address transportation, they can think of the transportation needs that students may have in the context of students' needs around transition. So for those two primary reasons, I think it's important for transition specialists to address transportation in the context of transition. Certainly, you know, there's been research, certainly national studies. I know the National Organization on Disability, there was a recent general accounting report, a GAO report, which indicated that transportation is really an obstacle to student attainment of post-school goals. So when transition specialists don't provide students with transportation education and students don't have education around supports around transportation, they're not able to access post-school goals, whether it be related to employment, higher education, independent living. They just don't have the choices. My supervisor at Easter Seals Project Action sometimes refers to the notion of students and individuals having spontaneous choices in life, where people want to go and make choices and want to access the kinds of life events that you want to, and you don't want transportation to be an obstacle in attaining those life events. So the probably one of the biggest barriers toward not having transportation education is not accessing the kinds of life events that you or I may have access to. Easter Seals Project Action. Project Action stands for accessible community transportation in our nation. We're a national technical assistance project funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration. We've been around for 23 years. We're funded through legislation in the National Highway Bill. So we're have been an earmark, and we're a National Technical Assistance Center that provides an array of services around supporting individuals with disabilities to access transportation. Some of the services we provide are training, and we use a universal design for learning kind of approach. So some of our training may be face-to-face training, hands-on training, distance learning kinds of events. We do webinars. I do a lot of face-to-face kind of events in person at meetings and conferences. We produce a lot of hands-on materials. If you go to our website, there's lots of free download materials. We are very interactive in our materials because we know that people like to learn through interactive materials and tools. So we provide a lot of online kinds of events where diverse audiences can engage with other audiences. The work that I do focuses on bringing together educators and transit providers, because often educators don't interact with transit providers and operators of public transportation systems. And so the forums that we create through Project Action and the work around student engagement seek to bring together education and transit. So that's Project Action. Project Action addresses transportation solutions in that we provide technical assistance and to identify problems and issues that individuals may arise. So people would call our center with particular issues that they have in their communities, or they may attend an event where they identify products and materials that we produce that they can use in their own environment. So by listening to the field, by being current regarding the needs of audiences, we're identifying needs, and then we're developing materials to respond to those solutions. Transition specialists, as we know, and my background is as a transition specialist, is the notion of coordinated systems is bringing together diverse professionals to form a cohesive continuum or a cohesive system. So a coordinated transportation system means bringing together educators, bringing together pupil transportation professionals. So those are the people in a school system that provide the yellow bus services to students, bringing together public transportation professionals so that when students are in school, they're learning about public transportation, and when they leave school, they've got the supports that they need to be able to access public transportation systems. So coordinated transportation systems is building a system of coordinated services across a continuum of services. And it's my dream, and I call it my dream, is having everybody sitting at the table. So you have educators sitting together with pupil transportation professionals, sitting together with public transportation professionals. And on the Easter Seals Project Action website, I've developed some models where that can happen. And actually, transition specialists and educators can use these models and work within their own settings. And I encourage transition specialists and other educators and families too to sit down with pupil transportation people within their district and figure out how they can work together to build a continuum of services for students. Again, Project Action has a lot of tremendous resources, free resources on our website, but there are some really innovative examples out there of strategies that rural communities have used to build solutions in rural parts of our country that don't have a lot of transportation options. Some examples may include sharing programs, vehicle sharing programs. So, for instance, in one part of Western Massachusetts, there may not have been a lot of transportation in a part of the community. So a human service provider she did kind of a resource mapping where she explored what human service organization or what organization had a lot of vehicles that may not have been used. And she worked with that organization to use those vehicles to support her needs during times that their organization weren't using that vehicle. So there's kind of innovative examples like that, ride sharing programs, vehicle sharing programs, volunteer driver programs. I've known of other examples where there have been cross-border sharing programs where county-to-county programs have developed sharing mechanisms. So there's also been examples of funding where rural communities have gotten together to develop cooperative grants to seek funding. And the federal government, actually, the Federal Transit Administration, provides funding and support to rural areas in particular because they know that there's, in many circumstances, not a lot of transportation resources in rural areas. So, I think it means being a little creative, identifying the resources, transportation resources in a community by, doing internet searches, transportation searches. There's typically something called mobility management infrastructures, or sometimes called coordinated transportation infrastructures in communities that people can leverage and tap into. and get involved and be a leader and just learn as much as you can about the kinds of resources that are available. As little as they are available. People can access resources from our project, from Project Action, in a number of ways. We've got a toll-free number, but probably the easiest way to access resources through our project is through our website, which is www.projectaction.org. We have the resources that are specific to youth and students. There's a tab on the top of our website which is, it indicates youth initiative. It says initiatives, and you'll find all our resources related to youth under that. And one of the best resources, which I think would be most useful to transition specialists, is we have an online community, and it's called the Accessible Transportation for Students online community. And it's a forum for transit professionals and youth and students, well, students themselves and educators and transition professionals. And it's just a forum to dialogue and share stories and strategies. And for instance, we had someone share resources regarding how to develop goals for IEPs around transportation. We had someone else share information about how to incorporate content around transportation around Common Core, which is a really interesting new discussion we've been having. And especially when we think about college and career readiness and Common Core standards, one of the topics that keeps coming up is how do you integrate this content into reforms and into initiatives that are currently going on so that transportation isn't another thing. It isn't an afterthought. So some of the discussion that you'll see on the Accessible Transportation for Students online community is very relevant to that. So that's how, I think that one of the best ways, we do have the toll-free number and you'll find that number there, but I think our website is probably the easiest way for folks to access our resources. One of the greatest opportunities that I've had in my role, my position as the Director of Student Engagement and Mobility Management, and in my role as Director of Student Engagement and Mobility Manager, I've seen opportunities that education can really influence transit. In one example, I'm working with a school district in El Paso, Texas, and the school district students and educators, and it happened to be transition professionals from the school district, were very active in a community transportation advisory board in the community. And on the transportation advisory board obviously sat a lot of influential transit agency professionals. And the transit agency was considering developing new routes within their local community. And because the educators, because the transition professionals were sitting at the table and had developed the relationship with the transit professionals, they influenced the transit agency to reroute their transit routes to better serve students with disabilities that were going to community-based placements, that were interested in work experience around the school setting. So by just being at the table, by the communication in informal and formal ways that participation generated, really had an influence on the transit agency. And it was very exciting to see, and I've seen other examples like that where education has influenced transit.